My definition of meditation is getting quiet enough, allowing yourself to get into a space where you are quiet enough to hear your own inner voice, that voice that tells you whether something's right or wrong for you. And it's the voice that only you can hear. And some people call it intuition. It could be, if you believe in God or the universe, it could be that higher source speaking to you. But to me, meditation is allowing yourself to get into that space to hear that. And when you do that, that's when you know what is the right decision or what are the right choices for you instead of listening to what everybody else outside of you is telling you.
There was a day you and I were on a Zoom and I was talking about my fucking morning walks.
Mm-hmm.
And you were talking about meditation and I could feel my own eyes rolling in the back of my head as you were talking about it, right? And I'm like, this fucking meditation stuff, man, because just the idea of trying to sit for 5 minutes and get quiet just fucking drives me bonkers. Right? Call it ADHD, call it just high energy, whatever the fuck you want to call it, just the entire thought process. So for anybody who doesn't know, every morning on my farm, I go walk 45 minutes and listen to a podcast. And I listen to a podcast because I got to be distracted to think. Just the way I'm wired. And Lori and I were kind of getting into almost a heated conversation over this stuff. And she finally popped off and said, Donnie, do you realize that when you zone out on those fucking walks, you're actually meditating? And I paused and I was like, son of a bitch. I've been doing something that I didn't think I could do for a very long time. So one, thank you for that. But two, explain that for me.
Yeah. So when you come back from those walks, that's when you write.
Yep.
That's when you take all of those thoughts that have been rolling around in your head while you're walking, forming, and put them down on paper. And that writing process is also part of a meditative. You're in a meditative state, essentially, when you're doing that. You're reaching this alpha brainwave level, and it's a very creative place to be.
What's alpha brainwave level? What the hell is
that? Okay, so the brain operates on different frequencies, and alpha it's that state between awake and asleep, right before you fall asleep. When you're in meditation, you're typically in alpha. Beta is what we are in right now. You're fully conscious.
So that's the same state you get in like when you're driving down the road and you get to your destination, but you don't remember the drive.
You could be dipping into that level. And then there's a couple of other, theta and delta are much deeper when you're asleep or unconscious. And then there's even a gamma level now too.
That's one turns you into an Incredible Hulk?
Yes.
Like a gamma ray? No.
Yeah, exactly. but alpha is when you're in that creative state, you're meditative, all those great ideas come to you. A lot of people who are runners, that's kind of maybe where they are when they're out running, not necessarily runner's high, but that place where you're just in the flow. And so when we talk about meditation, what you and I have always bumped heads on is that misconception around what meditation is, that it means sitting quietly on a mat with crossed legs for an hour at a time, emptying your head of all thoughts. Right. And that could be a form of meditation, but a lot of people can't get there. So that's what I talk a lot about, is that those myths and misconceptions around what meditation really is. And you're not alone in not being able to sit still and clear the thought. And so this is why I love telling people, if you can go out and walk in nature, that could be meditative. Typically, I tell people to not take their electronics, but I understand that that's how your mind gets quiet, is by listening to something. So whatever it is that gets you into that state, that could be considered meditative.
Why does somebody need to get to that state? What's the point?
Right now, especially, we are so overwhelmed with messages from outside of ourselves. The social media, traditional media, family, friends, well-meaning colleagues, even well-meaning coaches. They can give you advice, but that doesn't always mean that it's the right thing for you. Getting into this meditative state on a consistent basis allows you, like I said, to tap into that inner voice and hear what the answers are. Now, this is why a lot of people don't like getting into it, because they don't want to hear. They don't want to admit what they're hearing.
They don't want to hear the freaking construction work going on behind you as well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Because it doesn't sound necessarily logical. Or maybe it's uncomfortable. That voice is telling them to, leave their full-time job and start a business or whatever, or go bigger. You need to do more on social. You need to run videos, whatever it is. that's scary. So they don't want to hear it. So they avoid it. But also what meditation does is it helps you get clear on it clears the channel so that you can make better decisions. This is where it gets really important especially for entrepreneurs and business owners, is it helps you be more creative. It helps you be a better leader. It helps you make better decisions, to come from a place of responding instead of reacting.